Hi everyone, welcome back to Idol Talk, where we explore South Korean pop culture one obsession at a time. My name is Nathan, and I'm your host.
Hey everyone, I'm Ashley, and I am currently on episode 7 of season 2, Physical 100. And I am totally inspired to start a workout routine, you know?
Bro, I watched that this past weekend.
Like the whole
Really?
thing.
Yeah,
I love that.
The episodes are so long.
yeah.
They're like an hour and a half each, and sometimes I can't finish an episode in one day. Like I have to break it up into multiple days. So I'm almost to the finish line.
Yeah, my sister got me into it. She says she watches for the sportsmanship.
Yeah, it's really
Yeah.
uh, endearing.
They're also like developing their cross show contestants. Because
Yes,
like people kind of know certain Singles Inferno people and they're like rooting for them or whatever. Like they have like
Right.
celebrity moments now.
there's one guy on the show, I forget his name, but he's a backup dancer for Sunmi. And he was on
Another
Singles.
backup dancer for Sunmi. Love it. Yeah.
It's the same one that
Oh,
was
it's the
on
same
Singles
one.
Inferno season 1. And on the show, they call this dude the son of Netflix because he is on Singles Inferno and Physical 100.
Interesting. Okay, well, maybe we'll do a review of that one when it finishes. Isn't there an idol on that show too?
Yeah, there was a kid from Golden Child.
A kid? How old is he?
I mean, Golden Child, they're like a young, I would say
Yeah,
they're the
youngish,
same
yeah.
age as like the boys,
Yeah.
but he was eliminated like first round.
Oh, okay, poor guy.
Yeah,
Okay.
physically,
All right.
he was like very. I mean, I don't doubt his endurance. We know how idols are notorious for endurance and like all that stuff. But yeah, everyone
When you're
else is
competing
like
against
super
like
buff.
athletes, yeah.
Yeah.
And what was sad is that in that competition, like the really buff guy chose a really small kid just to get him to the next round. You know, like
Yeah.
he picked an easy competitor.
Mm. All right. Well, if you haven't already heard her voice, we have a special guest on the podcast today, and Casey is back. Casey, did you want to introduce yourself?
Hi everyone. If you don't know me, I'm Casey. I'm an OG founding Idol Talk member. Much like the topic of our conversation today, I've left for solo activities and I regularly come back for group activities.
Oh my
So
gosh, I
I'm
love that.
I'm happy to be back and talking about a topic that has, set personally the world of Showls aflame, where like the subreddit was popping and has been crazy. I've just been dying to talk about this. So thank you for having me on.
All right. Yeah, when Casey says she wants to be on, I make every effort to, make it happen. So as Casey alluded to, we're gonna talk about a recent phenomenon in K-pop, thinking about idols renewing or not renewing their contracts. And of course, this has been a long, long discussion, not just recently, but in the last couple of weeks, it's been in the media a little bit more, and we wanted to give it some attention. So Ashley is going to just start us off with a little bit of an overview of this puzzling thing, why this is like so talked about in the K-pop community, that being contracts. So Ashley, did you want to kick us off?
K-pop contracts started at the inception of K-pop back in the 1990s. Basically, what a contract is, it's in the 1990s at least, it was where a person who has big ambitions of like fame and stardom, they want to pursue their dreams in dance and singing, whatever. They go to an entertainment company and they audition. And when that entertainment company chooses them to be part of their company, they sign a contract. And these contracts often stretch from like 7 to 15 years. They are nicknamed, at least the original form of the contract was nicknamed a slave contract
Mm-hmm.
because it was a form of modern day indentured servitude to the entertainment
Mhm.
company, where they found these artists. Back then, I wouldn't even think that they were considered artists. They were just people, employees of the entertainment company, and the management
Mm-hmm.
agency managed everything about their life, their diet, their schedule, their relationships, their looks. This is where K-pop kind of gets their bad rep, where companies force people to go on severe diets, get plastic surgeries to fit this type of mold of a group that they want to debut. Like I said, slave contracts were really oppressive. They described how much idols worked for very little reward.
Mm-hmm.
Usually in those slave contracts, they had very little monetary compensation for the amount of work that they were doing for the group and the company. The original contracts were stretching between like 7 to 15 years. And usually it ended like contract renewals came up around the 7-year mark. And this is where the 7-year curse came into play. The curse is where a group doesn't renew their contract with their existing company because they can't come to a mutual agreement on what they want to do going forward. This typically affected girl groups more than male
Mm-hmm.
groups.
Mm-hmm.
So you'll see around the 7-year mark, this is when 21, 4 Minute, Sistar, Miss A, Kara, and Wonder Girls, just to name a few, officially disbanded. And that was kind of the norm for a long time. Like, if you were a big group and you disbanded after your contract ended or was up for renewal. Around the early 2000s is when things started to shift in the contract space. There were really big legal lawsuits that brought to light terms of the slave contracts. So, for example, one of the first ones that was really big was TVXQ.
Mm-hmm.
They had a 13-year contract, and in their lawsuit they argued that it was excessively long, restrictive, that they had very little financial compensation compared to the group's success at that time. Similarly, both of these examples were at SM Entertainment. This was also around the time when EXO, some of the Chinese members of EXO were in a very similar legal lawsuit where they were citing grievances regarding the length and terms of their contracts. They alleged unfair treatment, lack of transparency, unreasonable profit distribution, and just all of the reasons why slave contracts were nicknamed that. After these two big lawsuits became public, the Korean Fair Trade Commission intervened and they implemented reforms trying to curb exploitative practices. And they instituted a law where they restricted the duration of a contract. So they created a law that required entertainment companies to make contracts a maximum of 7 years.
Mm-hmm.
And they were also trying to create more transparency within the contract so that it more heavily weighed on to like artists. It like prioritized artists' well-being as opposed to like company profits.
Mm-hmm.
So after that huge win for idols, the contract industry began to shift. There was more transparency with contracts, and idols themselves also began fighting more for fair treatment within their contracts. And that in turn made the entertainment companies like adapt to what the idols wanted. And this is kind of where I think idols started going from like idols to artists, because in this shift there also was more focus on like artists participating in the music, artists like having artistic decision making in their creations, in their performances. I think that the term or like slave contracts still do exist, and we see that every day. Most recent example would be the Rose and their contract lawsuit with their entertainment company. what is most recently happening is idols staying with their original entertainment company and then doing their own solo activities elsewhere. And I think that this shift is happening because entertainment companies understand the value that these idols bring to their company. Most recently, there's like a lawsuit between CBX and SM Entertainment because their contract was coming to renewal. SM Entertainment, for example, understands how much Baekhyun, Schumann, and Chen, how much revenue they bring to SM,
Hmm.
and like how the fans want the group to be intact.
Hmm.
And for in order for EXO activities to continue that the fans will be happy with, they have to kind of like come to terms with continuing, like, or come to terms with what those members want. And it's not always the case that the solo activities that individual members want aligned with the business goals or whatever that entertainment companies want. So there is a very big shift in how contracts are happening, or like, yeah.
Yeah, that
I don't
makes a
know.
lot of
I'm just kind of rambling here now.
Yeah, so I mean, I think Ashley described it really well. Like, the reason why we wanted to have this episode is because even though contract renewals have always been a source of personnel controversy over the course of K-pop history, like I think there's kind of been an evolution of
Mhm.
this controversy. And right now what we're seeing is that a lot of people are very comfortable stepping away from their parent company nests, but they're still willing to stay together in that parent company in regards to group activities.
Mhm.
So I guess my first question is, why do big idols like Baekhyun, like Taemin, right? Onu, naturally, as of recent, right? Why do these big idols have the incentive to do that? Like, why are they stepping away into a place that supposedly might have less visibility? Does
Mhm.
anyone have any thoughts on that?
I mean, there's always going to be a variety of reasons. The most famous ones, and we've cited a couple cases of this already, Baekhyun, The Rose, it's all about the, long contracts, excessively long contracts, especially with EXO being from that generation of artists. They came from the 12, 13-year contract era. Um, Money in the case of The Rose. I think Baekhyun, Chen, Zoomin also was a money thing too. They were
Yeah,
owed
that was definitely
payments. Yeah.
profit driven, right? But
And,
like that, you got
yeah,
to
go
put
ahead.
food on the table for you and your family.
I mean, if you're signing your like 13 years, imagine where you were when you were like 15, 16, and someone's like, yeah, sign this contract for 13 years. So you're going to be done and you're a completely different person. You've gone through so much and then you're not getting paid as you're due. You're stuck in a slave contract where a lot of idols will finish their trainee period and owe money
Yeah.
to the company that they're
Mhm.
employees of. Like, you know what I mean? It's if you were approached by a company and they were like making you pay to work for them, I think you would be like, that's a red flag. But
Right.
that's the reality for a lot of idols. So it's easy to point at that also, like the money and contracts being like the most famous issues that we see when it comes to artists leaving their original companies. SM is so infamous for these types of situations. And it's also now, as Ashley's alluded to, with idols wanting to focus on their own sound, their own artistic direction. It could be a mismatch of that as well. They're not allowed to be given the sound that they want or the, you know, um, artistic direction that they want to go in. And it could also be management.
Yeah.
We hear all the time about how entertainment companies mismanage the solo activities of an idol. Taemin is the, best example of this. He's the idol's idol, but he's not being promoted properly with SM. He's never gotten a world tour. He just keeps getting sent to Japan and that's it. Like, hello. He's got
Yeah.
a huge fan base globally.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, that makes a lot of sense. Ashley, what for you are the key factors that drive this decision? Like if you were to try to put yourselves into thinking about Baekhyun's shoes, is it that like is it also that like I don't really need this like infrastructure anymore because I have made a name for myself and
Mm-hmm.
the time has kind of passed for that? Like, what do you think?
Yeah, I think what you're saying is correct in terms of Baekhyun. I would see it as kind of they need me more than I need them.
Same,
Period.
like same for all the Blackpink girls, right? All four of them.
Right.
Hmm.
They're just like
Right.
sayonara. Like I don't like. Why do I need
Okay,
this
that one
again?
was like way overdue.
Yeah, that's like
Way,
way
way
overdue, right? It's
overdue.
like, but like they don't. Why do they need YG? Like
Yeah.
they're not even promoting them really. They're like came up.
Mm-hmm.
They have like how many songs do they have lifetime? Like
When
what are they?
you're the biggest name and not the entertainment company that's backing you, there's less incentive to stay, right? I mean, let's look at who's like a really good example. The friggin' what's her name? She left Cube with her little boyfriend.
Tiana.
Hyuna,
Hyuna, I can't believe I forgot her name. I'm
with
so
her
sorry.
little boyfriend. Jesus,
They
Hyuna
broke
fans,
up, by the
please spare
way.
us.
Sorry, Hyuna fans. I just mom brain. I'm
They're
gonna
no
blame
longer
this
together,
baby.
by the way.
I know they broke up. So what was it all for? But anyway, so she left. Okay, when this all started, you have to consider who was the big three of
Yeah,
entertainment companies at the time before Big Hit
yeah,
Hype
yeah,
come
yeah,
up,
yeah, yeah.
right? And then
Cube
she
was right
left
in there. Yeah,
and she made Cube.
yeah,
There's no argument there. And then she went and she's totally fine, doing great.
yeah, yeah,
So
yeah.
that's a great example of where staying would have hindered a career more than helped a career, especially for an idol that's senior.
Correct. I thought about this like quite a long time ago, like maybe like a year ago, and I was like, why are these big idols leaving these companies? Because sometimes I do feel like there's an argument to be made that like if you do leave these high profile companies, your profile also goes down. So
Don't you think that if you're high enough, it won't affect it because you're fat? Like
I think
the
that you
fans stay
still
with the idol, not with the company.
I think
Mm-hmm.
fans stay with the idol, but I think something can also be said that like if so for example, SM is fully capable of all of this work to promote their artists,
Right.
right? I guess my question is when they step down into like a smaller place, and I've kind of changed my tune on this. Like I think that it could be a good thing. But before I was like, I just don't see what the positives are because like this company has so much less profile, seemingly less
Hmm.
assets, seemingly less resources. But now I'm thinking, would you rather be like if I'm like Taemin, would you rather be like SM has like idols everywhere, right?
Hmm.
Would you rather be, he's still in the top 1% of SM idols, but would you rather be like the star person in a small company where like
Mm-hmm.
you're gonna literally get all of the resources versus SM still has to like take care of their 100 billion other people, no matter how good you
Right.
are, because they're still
Yeah.
like, well, we have a lot of talent here, right? So you're not the only fish that we need to feed. But then if you go
Hmm.
down to a Big Planet Made, you're like, you would be like an idiot if you're a producer at Big Planet Made not to give almost every asset to your
Mm-hmm.
new artist, Taemin.
Yeah. I mean, that was my initial reaction when I first sent you guys the news. I was like, can they handle what he wants? And it's not a secret that, members of Shiny had alluded to being dissatisfied with SM and how
Sure.
they're managed. Surprised that Minky decided to renew contracts with SM because for a really long time, Shiny was like, if one of us leaves, we're all leaving. If we stay, we stay, you know? So now they're split and it's a strange world to be living. I mean, their group activities are still with SM, of course, but I am concerned that BPM doesn't have the resources to support Taemin and still keep their other idols and groups,
Look,
you know, satisfied.
Yeah.
It
I
remains to be
think
seen.
I think that there there's something to be said about what like the individual idol's own ambitions. So for example, in the like for Shiny, it seems as though Taemin and Onu have like really big solo ambitions. Like they obviously want to do more than what SM can provide. But for
Is
Key,
willing. SM can provide. They're
they're
but
just
is
capable.
not
willing.
willing.
Yeah, that is a good distinction. But in terms of Key, like maybe he's happy with the solo, like having his solo activities every so often because he does have a big career outside of music.
That's
He's like
true.
he's a variety show type of person, you know, and maybe those contracts aren't managed by SM and he could like expand on those, make more money on those, and then every so often when he wants to drop like a solo album, he can.
He can do that, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I guess this is a good transition into like another question that I had, which is what does this signal about the big companies? Like, if you were a big company, like, wouldn't you, like, let's say contract renewals happen. Like, this is kind of like a job negotiation, in my opinion. I
Mm-hmm.
kind of see
Mm-hmm.
this as that, right? It's like, okay, 3 years, I'm getting promoted and I have another contract. You want me or not? It's going to cost you more because
Mm-hmm.
I've done a lot. I've served a lot and I deserve more. And actually, someone else wants me. So, like, what's it to you? And I feel like I want to take the like idol centric approach where like they do deserve more
Mm-hmm.
because they work incredibly hard and they do so much. So for me, it's just like not even just like SM with JYP and GOT7. You didn't want to keep them. You couldn't pay them a couple million more every year. That's nothing to you. You couldn't pay like Blackpink their actual dues to like stay in the parent company. Like, wouldn't you want them to stay in the
It's
parent
weird,
company?
right?
Like, I feel like you would want that.
I would
So
want
like put
that
your money where your
too.
mouth is, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Because now you got to
It's
take them
so
off of the
bizarre.
roster. Like
Mm-hmm.
Well,
Mm-hmm.
that's a
they're
little
still there,
embarrassing.
but like
They're not
begrudgingly
though.
They're
probably.
not
Yeah,
though. Okay, like
they're not though. Like that's the
that's like
thing.
the refrain that keeps being echoed all over the place when it comes to discussing the fact that like the group is staying with SM. What is that actually going to look like? Because you know, historically, it means that the group gets like put on the back burner. They're not doing as many activities because it's harder to coordinate the idols. I mean,
Yeah,
granted, Shiny is always five, but physically four. So how is that going to look
yeah,
when, like we said, Onu and Taemin have greater
yeah.
ambition?
You know, in defense of SM, they have made it work for Girls' Generation. And I
Mm-hmm.
think that with three girls departing from Girls' Generation, like I never thought that I would really see them again.
Yeah, it's
But they
kind
were
of how
willing
I
to,
feel.
yeah, but like they were willing to come back together. And they also did
Yeah,
an SM concert stage.
they
So I'm just
did.
like,
Mm-hmm.
They did.
it's interesting because they are welcome back
Yeah.
with open arms. I actually think that like a lot of this question of like what's going to happen to them is like we can kind of direct those back to JYP and YG. Like YG, are you going to give them an album?
Hmm.
Because you're still managing these four girls apparently.
Yeah.
Well, YG doesn't like to make music, apparently.
Well, they don't. Yeah.
They love putting artists in the dungeon and just like never hearing from them ever again.
I just like am so confused because I would, if I was a producer there, my gut instinct would tell me I need to keep them on this roster and I need to find every resource for them and like to make their
Yeah.
contract better so that they would want to sign with me.
Right.
To answer your question about like what does this signal about big companies, my impression is that they're taking these artists for granted. Like
Mm.
every single time, like yeah, every single time you hear about Taemin, you hear about these like up and coming trainees and idols. Like they're so geeked out to like meet him. They talk
They're
about how they were
literally
his
geeked out.
fan. They're talking about how he inspired them to want to become an idol. So it's, I mean, I am very biased, but it's like clear that he's an institution of his own. So why isn't SM putting more behind him? Like it's very confusing. And with Taemin being so publicly dissatisfied, and even, Key has also said stuff before, like
He's been
he's been on
shady on
stage and
TV. Yeah. Hmm.
yeah, he's said to his fans, literally, like, tell SM to do better, like directing
Mm-hmm.
his fans to, sticking them on SM. So why is it so hard for them? Like if that's what they are, if that's what they're putting out publicly, what is going on behind closed doors? And why is it so hard for them to get what they need?
Right.
I have
Right.
a thought and I'm forming it in my brain as I am speaking. So I apologize if this sounds ranty, but these companies, the big three, quote unquote, they are built by producers. Lee Suman, JYP, like
YG.
Yang
Yeah.
YG. And I think these three guys had ideas of what they want the sound of their company to be. And that's why like each of those three companies has a very distinct sound.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I think maybe this is speculation why there's so much strife between artists and the company is that nowadays artists have more like
Wider
voice like
interests.
or it's not that they have wider interests, it's that they actually have a seat at the table in terms
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
of their overall image and performance. And
Right.
so when what the idol wants contrasts with what the company wants, then there's going to be like strife.
Right. And
And
also, it might give incentive for the company to be like, oh, actually, we think that you're a really big idol and we respect you, but you're not necessarily fitting in with the brand. So we're not going to fight for you to renew your contract as much.
right. And
Could be the case.
the shift where they are wanting to keep the group on, but like they're okay with artists going on doing their solo activities elsewhere is probably because they understand the artist's like the artist's contribution to the brand and how they need Shiny, they need EXO, they need Girls' Generation to like stay with the company and associate those names with SM Entertainment in order to keep this like image of the company as a whole, you know?
Mm.
What I think is happening is, and this is like far down the line in K-pop, in the K-pop industry, is I think there's going to be a shift away from big companies. And we've talked about this in the past, you know, like
Yeah.
we see this example with Hybe and their subsidiaries. Like there isn't going to be a company focus anymore. This is like very uniquely South Korean. Whereas in the United States, like I don't even know who
I
Ariana
can't tell you.
Grande's
Yeah, I can't tell
company
you
is,
what
you
is what
Yeah.
know?
and who is who. Yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Exactly. And I think that's what's going to happen with K-pop as idols get more power over their own
JYP
performance.
would never let that happen. He is the star.
He is the star. I mean, he's still SM. I mean, SM not so much, but like JYP is still credited on like a lot of Twice's stuff.
Right.
So
Yeah. I know. I think
Yeah,
that's
I
super
think
interesting, Ashley,
that's
what
a
you just
good
said.
point that you made, is like the company identity is the center stage when it comes to the idol's individual sounds and looks. Like we've said so many times in the history of our podcast, oh, that is so SM, like that's such a SM sound. And as we branch away and we come to a new generation of idols, I I wonder if that's going to be to an entertainment company's detriment
Mm,
that they hold on
Mm-hmm.
so staunchly to these
yeah.
company sounds.
Yeah, no, I think that's an interesting point. I think so my comment kind of like builds off of this, but also builds off of like some of the other conversations that we've been having the last 10 minutes, thinking about like, are these large companies trying to, in the long run, keep them? And I think that the answer is I still think that there's some room to say that they are doing better. So for example, like I
Yeah.
don't know if this is because this is the last thing that I saw. They're letting Johnny do like DJ gigs. And
They've been letting him do
they
that.
have been,
I
but they
mean,
are like really letting him just like do whatever the F he wants, in my opinion, in my view of it. Like he did like a DJ show set, like Hyoyeon is literally out there playing at Las Vegas clubs, San Francisco clubs. Like this is weird. Like for K-pop
yeah.
idols, right? And like she's under SM, now she gets to do whatever she wants. She gets to like spread her wings and like like
Boots and cats and boots and cats.
so I think I was like, oh, maybe
Maybe
there
when
is.
there's like no harm to it and it doesn't cost them too much money, they have that ability to say yes to whatever. But then when you have someone like Taemin being like, I want to go on a
Yeah.
world tour, that's a completely different conversation.
Yes.
Mhm.
I have a lot of grievances with SM on how they handled Taemin's career. So for me, him leaving is great, but my issue is where he decided to go. Obviously, it would have been kind of cute if he went with Baekhyun's company. I don't know if they would have even had the resources for him either, but then they would have been like together. It's like kind of cute.
Yeah.
Not that BPM is like super random. They have
They have
House of
some pretty
Moon.
big names there. I mean,
Yeah.
it's not a huge company, but they have big names there.
He knows people there.
He knows
The
people there
choreographer, Connie, is
Mhm.
there.
who just
So,
came out with the big VV's hit. Like she did
yep,
the VV's
she
Maniac.
did. And Vivi's
So,
is there. So,
right.
Yeah, they're like a medium-sized company as opposed to
Now they're a
Baekhyun, who's
medium-sized company. 2 years ago, they were
yeah.
like, we
yeah,
were like, huh? But
yeah.
so, I mean, that brings me to like the final question, right? Which is, Casey, your idol has left the nest. If you reach back
Yeah.
into the archives and list out our ultimate biases, well, not Ashley, but Casey and I's ultimate bias have now left this nest. So I
hmm
want to know from Casey's perspective, like, what are your thoughts? Like, what are your thoughts? Like, what did you think at first? And then, like, I guess, where do you stand now with all of this, and what are your hopes?
Okay, like it's no secret that we were very much SM stands just historically. And it's not like because we were standing SM. It's
Yeah,
because
yeah,
we gravitated towards their artists a lot more. So it is a bit of a strange feeling to not associate your idol with the entertainment company
that
anymore.
you grew to know them in. Yeah,
Mhm.
Yeah, yeah. And we have a distinct sound. We know what to expect. We can kind of we know the managers' names, we know all these things
that's
about them
true.
because it's tied in with the greater entertainment companies like web, right? So this coming into this not knowing anything about a seasoned idol with like a 13-year history, like is scary. It's not, I don't know. It's just me. I don't like the unknown. And this is very much unknown. I don't know if they have the resources. When I saw the news, my heart dropped because I was like, who the
Yeah.
F?
Yeah,
um,
I kind of rest assured with Taman though, because first of all, they're scheduled in like the next X months to do
yeah.
their last leg of shiny activities with Onu. So that
Yes.
like I was just like,
I want
this
to talk
sounds
about
very
that briefly.
yeah, go
Like
ahead.
Onyu not renewing his contract after like I know he's on health hiatus and he looks amazing lately, by the
Much
way,
better. Yeah.
but still no word on what's happening with him is also giving me a little bit of anxiety because he's such a vocal powerhouse. I really need him to be somewhere that can boost that. He's been he's not been getting what he deserves, and I mean obviously he's still on health hiatus, I think. So
Yeah.
it
Yeah. Well,
remains
I
to be
think
seen.
he's going to come out of the health hiatus pretty soon.
Yeah.
Yeah. On my end, so Dio went to like not even a company. He went to like kind of like Beckham status. He didn't open his own company or whatever. I can't imagine Dio would ever do that. But he's kind of like an independent artist now with a company that actually like his manager kind of opened, right? Like he went with
Yeah,
his manager, right?
he's just managed by his manager.
Well, isn't he like
It's
wanting to
literally the
focus
most
more on
Dio thing I've ever heard in
acting
my entire
or
life. But like he's still gonna be releasing music, so I follow that company now, apparently. And
yeah, I mean I
mind
follow
you,
BPM now.
yeah,
Like what am I doing here?
like I was definitely within like the first like couple 100,000 followers on this new
That's
company
hilarious.
that Dio is now signed to as like the only artist.
You're like in
And
this room alone, like, hello?
yeah, is there anyone here? Like, and they just released a teaser yesterday that he's going to come out with this third mini album. And I was like, I didn't even know that anything was being in the works. So they're able to do it. I'm sure that, they hired a whole bunch of people just to work for him on
Mm-hmm.
behalf of him.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's the thing. It's
Yeah.
just like if you go to a smaller place, all the resources are literally going to go to you.
I mean, yeah, like he's this guy's total focus.
Yeah. But
We
that's the thing.
should
Like at BPM, I think Taman becomes very much the central focus.
I hope so. I mean, he needs more freedom for sure. And he needs like dedicated promotions. Like one of the biggest issues I had with SM historically, I don't know if I ever said it on the pod, but it was like during the Super M days, they cut his
Oh
promos
God.
short for Super M. For Super M. What? What the?
He's
Mm,
like the lead Avenger. Like he's Captain America.
that's what I'm saying. And so it's like the movie, the solo movie of Captain America ended abruptly. And then now we're just getting into the Avengers gathering. It's like, all
Yeah.
right. So, well, that's another question. Well, Super M's dead. I don't know why I was going to bring that up. Also, oh, I have a question about contracts
Yeah.
really quickly. Does he have access to perform his like previous music with SM? Like, do you think that's something that they
Hmm.
allow? I know that other artists have, so maybe it's not even an issue.
I do hope so. Because it is really fun when solo artists call back their old work because it's always going to be a part of them. Like I
Yeah.
hate when they ignore it.
Yeah.
No, I had hoped that I think that they're still going to reach into it.
Mm, okay. I don't want him to have to do a Taylor Swift and be like
No,
guilty
well,
Taman's
that
version.
has happened before because, for example, like VV's is not allowed to go by GFriend anymore. So it depends on how salty the companies
That's
are.
fair. That's
And
fair.
it was in SM's best interest, JYP,
Mm,
YG, not to do that.
yeah. I mean,
So
Taman has a new logo, but apparently I mean, it incorporates like elements of shiny and stuff, but that's why I'm concerned. It's like, is this going to be a
yeah,
situation where we're just
yeah.
going to
I
ignore
I
years of
kind of
discography?
Yeah. So like apart from the solo activities, which I'm a little bit like, I think that's gonna be okay. Like I
Hmm.
see a lot of these idols like really still commit to their groups. Like I saw Dio
Yeah.
like in a live with like the rest of the boys. I was like, he still wants to be there. He's just like
Hmm.
not
Yeah.
technical, like he still wants to be
It's the
there.
company. It's not the
Yeah.
members.
Yeah. So I still expect to see them very active, and
Okay.
I ex I still hold out that Shiny will come back to LA. Like, I still have
Oh my
hope.
God. I will go.
I still hope. I think the one lingering question that I have is when Big Hit and Hybe rose to fame, one of their trademarks was that like their idols loved working with them.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's really easy to shit on the old big three. And the reason why we're like having a discussion of those three is because they have a longer record.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And the longer you're in the media, like we're not always going to talk about positives, right? So I think looking forward, I'd be really interested to see like 4 or 5 years down the line if this positive company trend like still holds.
Yeah, let's do a check-in
Yeah,
later.
like I think we'll really have to do a check-in on like what's going on there. Is something positive going on there that the culture is truly different? Because they weren't built on the same principles as everyone else, right?
Mhm.
During
Yeah.
this like they didn't have slave contracts because they didn't exist, right? So there's no record really
Right.
to evaluate. Like we're evaluating the record because it's showing, right? And there's some positives and there's also a lot of negatives, right? But I think it'd be interesting looking forward to seeing like, oh, what does the Hybe record look like when push comes to shove? Are they going to fight for their artists individually, or are they going to let them go and just do group activities like what we're seeing right now? I think it'll be
Yeah, we
like,
should do a follow-up. Where are they now? And then really see if this is to the artist's benefit.
right. Any last thoughts on this issue? Contract renewals, an ever persisting topic of contention.
Seriously, like I never thought I would be in this situation because I got comfortable and now I had the rug pulled out from under me. That's how I feel. I knew
I
it
did
was
too, Casey.
coming,
I'm there
but
with you.
also, yeah. It's like you know it's coming. You know what they deserve, but you still feel a little nervous about it when
Right.
it happens.
Right.
But I support all the decisions. They know their career best, and I trust that they're going to make the right decisions for themselves and for their fan base.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Overall, I think it's a positive thing because they're moving forward with activities that they truly want to do.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I think
And they're
lastly,
still in it. They're still in
Yeah.
the industry.
Mhm.
yeah, I think we're just really lastly like back in the day, and I don't know like if we can make these parallels to the like to the K-pop community world and also like the corporate world in America. Back then, like the generation, right, was like I had one job and I stayed there for 15 to 20 years and I retired there.
Mm.
You, me, everyone in this room, like we don't do that anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
And that's like no longer the culture. And
Yeah, that's a good point.
And
It's
I
a good
think that
comparison.
like we want different experiences, like we also know our value and we're willing to advocate for ourselves a little bit more. And I think that that is just mirroring what's happening in the K-pop community too with the idols. Anyways, okay. Let us know what you thought about K-pop contracts. We're on Instagram at Idol Talk Pod. Please rate, review, and subscribe to us on all of our major podcast directories and streaming platforms. Please also send us feedback and content requests. We have our email, idletalkpod@gmail.com. And then lastly, we have our content directory, idletalkpod.uwu.ai, where you'll see previous episodes categorized, including playlists, song recommendations, concert and K-drama reviews, as well as information about us. And it could be seen in the description of our episodes here. Thank you to our listeners for tuning in. Until next time, we'll talk to you all later. Goodbye.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.